Meeting of the Honorable Sacramento City and County Cable Commission will now come to order, and the first item is a roll call.
Toby Johnson. Collin.
Here.
Strang.
Here.
Cerna. Castanis.
Here.
Panay.
Here.
Fletcher.
Here.
Grow.
Here.
And Toby Natale, absent. We have a quorum.
There is a quorum present, so that the meeting is now in session. This meeting of Sacramento Metro Cable Television Commission is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel on the Sacramento Cable System. Today's meeting is being cablecast live and will be repeated Sunday at noon. Members of the audience wishing to address the Commission should fill out a speaker identification form located at the back table and give it to the Secretary. Please come right up front to this point and hand it to her. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the Commission and state your name for the record. In just a few moments, we're going to have a special executive session, but prior to that, we're granting the privilege of Ann Reardon to speak at this time. Ann has to be at another location very shortly, and as a courtesy to her, we are presenting her at this moment. It is for information under item number 3, community access programming. Ann, it is all yours.
Thank you very much, Chairman Fletcher, and good afternoon, committee members. Thank you for letting me go first. I have a very brief status report I wanted to give you, and I'm here today as chair of the task force, or what do we call it, the committee program committee, or the committee to discuss programming standards for Access Sacramento. At the November 5th meeting of your committee, your body, there were questions raised about the current programming practices of Access Sacramento. These questions challenged fundamental interpretations that have served as the basis for Access Sacramento's programming policies for the past 6 years. In response, the Board of Directors of Access Sacramento passed a resolution to form an independent programming task force to advise them, and that's the task force I chair. I've accepted their invitation, and we have on that task force several attorneys, and we'll be adding several other individuals to it who are expert in communications issues. It's our intention to include also representatives of the clergy and general public. Some have indicated a wish to serve, and we're going to be naming them in our next meeting. Sacramento Cable Television, as well as Metropolitan Cable Television Commission, are invited to contribute to our work in any manner you deem feasible, either as observers. If you wanted somebody on the committee, he or she would be welcome, but these are open meetings, and we hope that you will follow what we're doing and make your comments appropriately. The 3 major goals of the task force are, first, to determine the legal extent to which Access Sacramento may exercise control over the content of public access programming. Secondly, to determine the best available technical and practical means of controlling public access programming content consistent with applicable law, and we're going to be looking at the total legal framework. And third, to consider whether appropriate community standards should be established for public access programming. Now, our next meeting is on December 9th at 3 o'clock at McGeorge College of Law. We hope to have a preliminary report completed before the holidays, and I think you wanted a report by your December meeting, which is today, which of course we were not able to get together yet. There's still a lot of research we want to do, and that's why I wanted to tell you where we were. But if we find it advisable, and our recommendation might be to establish community standards for program content and language, the second phase of work should commence in January. I'm asking that you give us until your January meeting to come back to you with recommendations so that we can be thorough in this and work for another month with people in as accelerated a schedule as we can. But at that time, if we do decide to recommend community standards be established, I would expect a series of public forums providing input from the Sacramento community, because I think this is something that the public would have to be involved in. Now, if the task force so recommends that, it is my understanding that the Board of Directors of Access Sacramento will modify their programming policies to reflect those community standards to the fullest extent permitted under current applicable law. Now, the issues facing the task force, which I chair, and the decisions to be made by the Access Sacramento Board are of great importance to our community. And we're taking this seriously, but we want to move very carefully and deliberately if we're to succeed in drafting guidelines that are capable of surviving the legal challenges that we know will come one way or another. So that's where we are now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the Commission?
I just have a question concerning the timing. And when do you suppose this work will be concluded? Do you have any idea?
We are working toward reporting back to you in January. Is that too optimistic? No. All right.
Because in the letter that staff has in the report today, asking for a report by November 25th, so that we could have that on the agenda today, and naturally we're not going to do that. So I'd like to suggest to the Commission, Orville, that we possibly maybe ask for a February report date from Access Sacramento on this policy. And that might be, would that be an appropriate time in terms of your committee getting their work completed by then?
We think so. We think so, yes.
There's one matter of protocol that we must clear here. Your reporting will be to Access Board of Directors.
That's correct.
It will not be a Cable Commission meeting for that purpose.
Yeah.
Then Access would be, whatever they wish to say to us would be said through the Board of Directors. That's the protocol that we're involved with.
Thank you for clarifying that. You're absolutely right, Chairman Fletcher, and that's why you need a few weeks in there for us to get our recommendations together to go to the Access Board. Remember, we are independent of the Access Board, even though there are members of that board serving on this committee. Other members are not associated with Access Sacramento in any way. I'm not, and we are independent. So we'll have to make recommendations to that board, and then they make recommendations to you.
The thing is that when you get into public sessions, it is going to take more time than a small committee could move forward with, and they would do it much more rapidly. So we'll look forward to a report from the Board of Directors. Maybe it'll be you in person, but it could be January, it could be February. You're involved in a task that's going to take time, and we are curious, of course, to hear what it is. Is that satisfactory, Commission members?
That's satisfactory.
We're listeners at this point, and thank you, Ann, for coming today.
Thank you, Orville. Thanks again
Thanks
for
very
letting me go early. I hope the new mayor gets his appointees made soon, so you'll report again.
We'll work on him.
Thank you.
With that now behind us, the Commission shall now recess to closed session to confer with and receive advice from its legal counsel regarding imminent and standing violations, litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 A and on through a few others. The matter under Subdivision A is County of Sacramento versus Protective National Insurance et al. Under Subdivision D, the session is based on recent assertions to the Commission regarding legal rights and responsibilities of certain community programming providers. So we'll declare a recess and we'll adjourn to the room on our left over here. Cindy Simonson, this is your opportunity.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Cindy Simonson, and I'm Director of Administration at Sacramento Cable. And I'm pleased to once again report we are in full compliance with the customer service regulations, and we are committed to surpassing those guidelines. We continue to improve our programming lineup and have announced that on December 31st we will be making some changes. A newsletter was mailed to all subscribers this last week detailing those changes, and you've each got a copy of that newsletter. We've decided to drop WWOR from our channel lineup, and we'll be adding the Sci-Fi channel. We feel that through these changes we'll give the majority of our customers the best value possible. We don't expect a great deal of disappointment in deleting WWOR, as more than half of that programming is available on other local channels or cable channels. Over the years, we've continued to add brand new channels to bring the best entertainment value possible. Today, we have more channels and more programming than we've ever had in the history of our cable system. Included in our newsletter is a general rate and programming disclosure information, which has now been mailed 5 times this past year to all of our subscribers. All told, we have produced over 1.5 million of these detailed billing and rate information pieces, which are provided to our existing customers as well as to every customer when we install their cable. We'll not end the communication process there. Every month, we will be sending a newsletter to our customers, which will include a channel lineup and information on our programs and services. As you can see, we've radically changed the way that we communicate with our customers, and will continue to cater to their needs in the future. Do you have any questions?
Questions.
He always says that.
All right. In closing, I'd like to make one last comment. We have certainly enjoyed working with Supervisor Strang. We'll miss your participation and your input, and we wish you the best in the future.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
I have a question. Cindy, I have a question concerning the $150 charge if the loss of a converter. Have you had to implement that charge, that fee?
That is implemented, yes. We charge that.
Do you do it very often?
Not very often.
Is it because it's broken, stolen? Under what conditions do you implement that?
Rarely because it's broken and stolen. It's implemented when a customer simply just doesn't return the equipment. We give them every opportunity. We notify them numerous times. We give them various spots where they can drop off the equipment. We set appointments where we will pick up the equipment, and it's generally a customer that just chooses not to return our equipment. At that point, it's charged to their account.
Is it is it a replacement charge? Is that how much they cost?
Yes, it is.
There's no added fee to that because of...
No, it isn't. That's just the replacement value.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We should note, Commissioner, that although we approve this form as to form, this doesn't preclude any person charged these amounts from contesting their validity in a judicial forum. We're not agreeing necessarily with the cable company that $150 or any particular number is the right number. Merely, it's a matter of information that that's what they intend to assert. What ultimately is owed is up to the usual channels of dispute resolution.
I'm glad you added that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
I'd like to add, just for the information, that 2 years ago when we started customer service regulations discussions and disclosure, this is the document that I envisioned at the time. For the company, it's a marketing piece on one side, and it's your general rate and programming disclosure on the other. This was the picture. This was the model. We've got there now.
We have a report by way of a letter from Cable America Corporation. I'd like to read it. It is from Richard Houghton, who is Vice President of Cable America. It's addressed to our Executive Director. It is their status report. It's dated December 1st. Please accept my apologies to you and members of the Commission as I am unable to attend the Cable Commission meeting due to prior commitments scheduled for December 3. I respectfully submit the following status update to the SMCTC for review. Number 1, Cable America has completed the base mapping needed for the requested service area. 2, our engineering group is presently researching utility pole ownership and evaluating the aerial make-ready requirements in the service area. 3, Cable America has pole attachment agreements with SMUD and Pacific Bell, and we're in the process of finalizing our agreement with Citizens Utilities. And number 4, our first phase of construction should begin in the next 60 to 90 days. I look forward to attending the next Cable Commission meeting. Please contact me at your convenience if you have any questions. Richard Houghton. That completes item number 2. Item number 3, community access programming, response to commission request for information. We're calling upon Michael Hayward, who represents Access Sacramento in the position of chair of the board of directors. Mike, it is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael Hayward, Access Sacramento. Sacramento Cable Television and Access Sacramento may not have seen eye to eye on everything before you today, but there is one thing we agree on strongly, and that is what a delight it's been to work with Commissioner Strang.
Thank you.
Now, you have before you Rich Spasto's letter to me, which is dated November the 12th, asking for various information on access policies, and my reply dated November the 25th. There are 3 major areas of response. Let me first take the easiest one, our board of directors. We've provided you with a complete list of board members over the past 4 years. By any objective measure, our current board, like every other board before it, represents a wide cross-section of the Sacramento community. The present board members have conscientiously tried to respond to your concerns by adopting interim measures which our attorney has advised are not entirely free of potential legal risk. And I'd like to make a public tribute to the board members who have agreed to undertake that risk. And I wonder how many people in this chamber would, as volunteers, accept a risk like that because they believe in the principle of public access. The second area of response deals with the interim measures that we have agreed to in our effort to meet your wishes. Because our programs are scheduled up to 6 weeks in advance, it's rather complicated to make all the necessary detailed time and channel changes, and then to train staff to implement these changes intelligently. I'm informed that it'll take about 10 days more to complete these adjustments. In the meantime, if something slips through the cracks during these 10 days, I would beg you to bear with us in this. In a moment, I'll ask Ron Cooper, our executive director, to give you in some detail the nature of the changes. Finally, I'd like to say a word about our task force. I'm grateful that you have given Mayor Rudin the opportunity to give you a status report. But the thing that troubles me is that your council has called this task force ill-advised, and that bewilders me. It seemed to me in my long career that when there are differences of views, it's not ill-advised to propose that the principal parties sit down and discuss their differences and try to seek a solution. Is it ill-advised for us to call in for advice authority in the field of constitutional law and other prominent citizens who have no axe to grind? Is it ill-advised to invite Mayor Rudin, who has the respect and the admiration of the entire community, to chair this as an impartial chairman? We hope that this inquiry on the task force will go through and come up with very positive solutions that will help us in the long term when the current emotion gets behind us, and we will find a decision that will stand up to future challenges. In that connection, then, let me first turn to our attorney, Craig Powell, who will tell you a little bit about the thinking behind it.
Thank you very much. The task force and the interim proposals, I want to give a little bit of overview about it. The interim solutions or proposals are solutions, and they've actually been adopted by the board, and Ron Cooper will get into that in greater detail, but I want to give you a little bit of overview of what they do. What it does is it adopts a 24-hour ban on indecent programming on Channel 17, and we are enacting an interim definition of indecency pending the results of the task force. On Channel 18, any adult-oriented programming, including anything that could be conceivably indecent, would be pushed off until after 11 p.m. at night on the radio channels and on the television channels. That is an interim solution. In the board resolution adopted by the Access Board at its meeting on November 19th, it took the position that Access Sacramento will adopt a 24-hour ban on indecent programming on all channels, on all frequencies, at all times, to the fullest extent that they're permitted to do so by law. So that the Access Board is committed to banning all indecent programming, again, to the extent permitted by law. The conundrum here is the law. Your counsel and myself have a difference of opinion on what the law is. And that was the genesis, the key genesis for the creation of the task force. I have advised my client and my board that if they immediately go to the adoption of a 24-hour ban under what I perceive to be the current state of the law, that they run a degree of personal risk in doing so. Under the Civil Rights Statute, if someone perceives that their First Amendment rights have been violated, that person is entitled to bring an action against the person who has violated his rights. And it is a potential that board members could be within the ambit of that liability. So I have essentially advised my clients that if they adopt immediately a 24-hour ban on indecency, they're exposing themselves to personal liability. It is an untenable, impossible position for a volunteer board member to be in, is to ask them to do something which would expose them to personal liability. And it is because of that, and that conundrum between what we want to do and what their lawyer is telling them they're permitted to do, that is the genesis for creating the task force. The task force idea is to try to reach a compromise solution, to research the facts, review the law, the best available constitutional scholars, and come to recommendations on what we can do. Are there middle grounds? Are there technical means in which to solve problems? And an example of that would be, if the task force determines that we could not do a 24-hour indecency ban, would there be an availability, a technical means of scrambling the channels after 11 p.m., or scrambling channel 18 after 11 p.m. in order to solve the problem? Would that be technically possible? Would that be economic to do? Would that solve the problem? That's just an example of the issues that the task force is going to explore. We take this very, very seriously. The Access Board takes this problem very, very seriously. And I want to harken back to something that Chairman Fletcher mentioned at the last meeting, and that is that the resolution of this is not going to be legal. It's going to be a matter of goodwill. And the efforts that the Access Board has taken, I think, demonstrate the goodwill of this community-based board to finding a solution to a very, very real problem, a conundrum that we share here in Sacramento with the rest of the nation. So with that, if there are any questions? No? If not, I will turn it over to Isla. Did you have something?
No, I said not right now.
All right. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ron Cooper, the Executive Director of Access. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Members of the Commission, Ron Cooper, Executive Director at Access Sacramento.
Ron, move the microphone on your right upward, please.
Well, maybe just lift the whole thing up if you want to by pushing the button on the right. It'll go up.
Wow.
You'll go with it if you hang on.
Which button do we press on? Ron, which button do we press on you to go down?
I'm sure you'll find it. What I'm attempting to do today is to talk from a practical reality, given the intent of the board to try and address the concerns that were raised at this commission meeting in the month of November. And I'm referring to the document that was submitted to you, and you should have that document again. Michael referred to it November 25th, and which also includes extensive exhibits pointing out the variety of Access Board involvement and numerous other items that are referred to in the 12-page document itself. In particular, I am addressing the way in which the staff is going to try and address these issues of indecency on the channels and on the radio frequencies. I've had an opportunity to, as I state in here, meet with the radio producers and representatives of the video producers. We've had frank discussions about how difficult this is. There's a lot of hurt feelings, as you can imagine, on the part of volunteers who have nothing to do with anything to be considered indecent at all, and that they feel that their programming efforts doing extremely good work here in the community are in danger, and they're concerned about that. The interim plans, and again I want to stress interim because this is going to be pending the results of the task force that will help us in terms of trying to address long-term policies, are summarized on page 5 of that document. Establishment of interim adjustments to programming policies. And it's broken down into a series of steps. And what I'll do is I'll just walk them through with you as I did with the Access Sacramento Board in terms of answering and addressing any questions that you may have. We will, if adult targeted programming is submitted, it will be played back between the hours of 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on channel 18 only. So that means after the kids have gone to bed at 11 o'clock. We will establish an interim definition of indecency, which will be established for all programming to be shown on channel 17. Playback operators will view and listen for indecency violations concurrently with the cable casting of programming. If programming is observed on channel 17 which violates the indecency standard, the program will be stopped and proposed for rescheduling on channel 18 after 11 o'clock on another evening. Using a combination of channel 17 playback, that is programming that therefore has been concurrently screened and therefore meets this indecency standard, that programming will replay during the day on channel 18, and that with a satellite dish, that with the help of Sacramento Cable and with permits that have now been achieved with the City of Sacramento for a satellite dish to be installed at Coloma Community Center, we will work to make sure that video of importance to this community and within the indecency standard will play back on channel 18 to 24 hours a day. Now this will come with time, but that is our goal, is to make sure that channel 18 has video all day long. And channel 17 playback will be in 3 different shifts, 6 hours each, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m., and then 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. So the channel 17 will have 18 hours a day of programming, which it currently does. The programming adjustments for the radio frequencies, 88.7 and 89.9, pose some real interesting problems in the sense that in establishing a standard of indecency for radio playlists, music is being constantly put out by record companies around the country, and we are working closely with radio stations in the Sacramento area, and in particular KXPR has been very helpful. And when I get done with my presentation, I'll pass out a document that we just received from Phil Corvo of Cohn & Marks, a law firm in Washington, D.C., Richard Helmnick has sent, which is the current status in terms of the indecency standard on broadcast as regulated by the FCC. And I think you'll see from that document that indeed indecency per these recent August 26, 1992 guidelines is permitted even on FCC-regulated broadcast frequencies, but channeled to the late night hours. And that's what we're attempting to do here. So that would mean that what we're trying to comply with here would even stand muster with FCC-directed guidelines for broadcast. And that's the key in working with the staff that I'm trying to implement. When you ask the question, what is obscenity, what is indecency, of 500 people, you're going to get 500 answers. So the practical reality of working with our staff and with our producers and program providers in the real world, and we're setting up trainings this week and next to do just this. The goal will be, think of the networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, as a playback operator or as a production director. If you observe programming that says something or shows something that you would not see on the networks, then you will be instructed, if you're a playback person, to stop that tape if it's being played on Channel 17, and then rescheduled on Channel 18 after 11 o'clock at night on another evening, because this would be determined to be adult-targeted programming for the late hours on Channel 18 only. Now, there'll be language coming out in terms of FCC guidelines regarding indecency standard, but again, we have to be very practical because our playback operators are going to have a great deal of responsibility. Now, some would say, well, why don't you pre-screen these programs? Why don't you, Ron Cooper, sit down as Executive Director of Access Sacramento and watch every single show? Currently, under advice of our attorney, as Craig was saying, we are defining ourselves as a public access facility wherein to pre-screen such programming would imply a prior restraint. And so under advice of attorney, we continue to not pre-screen programming, but this plan here is to concurrently view programming, and if something is seen or heard, to stop the program for rescheduling at a late night hour. On 88.7 and 89.9, coming back to radio, KCBL would be defined working with the radio stations in town and KXPR using the indecency standard, and this is established by talking to and discussing with a variety of program directors, and also subscribing to a variety of magazines which the radio stations use, Black Music Express, The Source, Pulse, Rap Master Jax, Cream, and Jazz Times. These are the magazines that follow current releases of various types of music and give descriptions of what's hot and what's not, and also, to some degree, the content of them for program directors to then create lists of what is acceptable for their radio station. So our plan is to adapt this type of addressing what is permissible on 88.7, both in terms of current and future music selections. But as you can see, again, this is a very difficult area in the sense of volunteer producers going down to Tower Records or whatever their favorite record store is and purchasing CDs or records of their choice and wanting to play them on the 88.7 or 89.9. If we, again, we're not censoring adult-targeted music. What we're saying is that 89.9 will be used on a tape delay basis. There will never be live cablecast radio on 89.9. But on a tape delay basis, 89.9 will run adult-targeted music from 11 p.m. at night until 5 a.m. in the morning. The rest of the day will be split between Audiovision, which is a reading service for the blind that has been on 89.9 for years now. Sometimes they're on and sometimes they have trouble in their volunteer readers, but the block of time that we've agreed with them is Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. until noon. And then we've made arrangements with VMR of Grass Valley to retransmit their signal on those times other than Audiovision and other than adult-targeted radio programming produced locally. So that 89.9 will again be 24 hours a day, Audiovision, and because KVMR of Grass Valley is an FCC broadcast facility, they must meet the indecency standard of FCC. And adult-targeted programming would only run on 89.9 from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. The justification and why we feel that the risk is acceptable, though there is a risk under advice of our attorney, is based on the operator rules of procedures. I delivered to each of your offices on November 10th a packet of information which gave you background about the makeup of our board, and also a complete copy of the 40-page operating rules of procedures that we currently work with and have worked with for 6 years. Under that operating rules of procedures in Section 13, Programming Scheduling Procedures, it does distinguish between Channel 17 and 88.7 as community use channels and Channel 18 and 89.9 as public access channels. So what we're saying is this is a continuation of that distinction, and by changing our programming days from the current 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. 6-hour block, and this is going to be one of the biggest challenges of all. We're shifting that around to a 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. to allow for that 2-hour window on Channel 18. So we're shifting that around. That will allow for us evening programming of convenient time, and also an 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. window on 18 and 89.9 for adult-targeted programming. Again, in conclusion, on this portion of my presentation, it is the intent of the Access Sacramento Board to adopt a 24-hour-a-day ban on indecent programming on all channels and frequencies if it is determined that Access Sacramento may legally do so. And as Craig has explained, that is the purpose of the task force chaired by Ann Rudin, is to give us some sense of what is the latitude, and the description of the measures that I have outlined. Those are interim measures in attempting to address the issues raised to the best of our ability and within current law. Are there any questions?
I have a question, Ron. It seems to me that there's quite a responsibility placed upon the shoulders of that person doing the playback. What are the person's qualifications? Who are they? Are they licensed playback operators? Are they people who work minimum wage?
Playback operators are, we have a crew of 3 part-time playback operators. They share the 6 nights that we schedule programming for. They're not minimum wage, they're not rich either, but they are attentive and qualified. I'm not minimizing, though, the intent of your question. This is a very difficult issue. My plan in terms of, and we had our first training session today for the staff, is to, with the help of Craig, to define in a legal way what indecency looks like and sounds like, but then to take it to another level in terms of some real practical realities. If you hear the following words, if you see the following body parts, and this is the kind of scrutiny that we heard this body requesting at the November meeting on an interim basis. And if we're found by the task force that will allow some leniency or some greater freedoms, then we'll implement that. But for right now, the task force hopefully will be able to define for us that maybe we can go further, or maybe we've gone too far. But that really is why the length of time for the task force and the community involvement is so important. It's going to be tough. We'll see how it works, and as I want to echo what Michael was saying, understand that all of us at Access Sacramento, the board and the staff and the producers, are going to we take this seriously, and we're going to make our best efforts. And as we have received, I'm sure we will hear from the community and yourself and Sacramento Cable, and we appreciate and welcome those comments.
Thank you.
Question? Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation under this item of community access program. I must leave the chair and the room to another obligation. Isla is going to take over and will act as presiding officer for the balance of this meeting. Isla, it's all yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We also have another person signed up to speak on item 3, and that person is Maurice Johnson. Is Maurice Johnson here? Okay.
Thank you, distinguished members of the board. My name is Maurice Johnson, and I'm a new member to the Sacramento community. I come from San Diego, California, and I used to be a access producer for a couple of years. Gotten a lot older and have drawn away from it. But now that I am older and I am now living in the Sacramento area, I'm interested in getting involved in access television. But I don't want to just concentrate on me right now. I think that access and cable in general is growing all over the United States. And all through the meeting, we have heard issues dealing with censorship. And obviously censorship is going to be an issue that's going to continue to be voiced in this community and all throughout America, probably leading into the next century. And I think it's important that although access is a creative medium, that we show wisdom, we show patience, and hopefully some forbearance in the type of programs that should be produced and just how the community access channel should be run. Like I said, I'm a new member to this area, and I'd also like to plug perhaps, Ron, that I'm hoping that perhaps the staff will grow. Perhaps there should be more minorities on the staff, a more homogeneous mix of people to have their input in what needs to be said and done on the access channel. And I'm sort of tooting my horn right now. I'm hoping that perhaps maybe if I'm hired in some capacity with access, that perhaps we can have like a homogeneous mix of people getting involved in the community channel. With that, you folks are doing a good job, and I want to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. Okay, there's no one else signed up on that. Any other questions by board members? Okay, then we'll go to item 4.
Good afternoon. Item 4 is a status report update on the boilerplate grant agreement. Recall last month the grantee managers presented to staff at the meeting their comments on the boilerplate entitlement agreement, which we distributed on October 16th. It took Brent and I about 10 days or so to put our comments into that document, and we then transmitted it back to the grantees for comment this week. 3 of the grantees have approached me today and just immediately before the meeting, saying that they have not had an opportunity to complete their review. They see no major problems, as I understand it now, but we would request that we continue this item to a meeting at a future date when their comments are back in. For your information, we have provided Brent has detailed explanatory comments as to the rationale and logic behind language which we feel belongs in the entitlement agreement. And in fact, the document before you is comfortably recommended by Brent and myself at this time. However, because the grantees, time-wise, have not had an opportunity to complete their review, I suggest and recommend that you continue this to a future meeting when all the comments are in.
Okay, there are 2 people who signed up. Both of them, I believe, represent grantees, so I don't know whether they want to hold their comments then, and we'll just continue it to a future meeting. Jan Tillman, you've signed up, and Craig Powell. So, Jan, do you...
Good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm really using this as an excuse to also express my appreciation, or KBI's appreciation, to Jim String for the wonderful service he's provided to our community. We're going to miss you. And to officially answer the item that's on the agenda. Yes, we would like to have it deferred until the next meeting, but I also did want to comment that we're very pleased with the process being used and the progress that we've made to date. We expect at KBIU to be able to expedite this very quickly, and we'll be ready for the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Craig, do you have nothing? Okay.
I move this item be continued, Chair Collins.
Okay, we're going to continue it then to our next meeting, which is January, correct? Okay, and which date?
January 7th.
January 7th. Okay, that's...
Did we need more time than that, or is that...
It's plenty. No. Really, we're just awaiting their responses. We have all of our comments and everything in the document. We think we'll be ready by the January date.
Okay. Is there any dissent from that? Hearing no dissent, let's just say it passes unanimously. And then we'll go on then to item 5, which is the public opportunity to discuss matters not on this agenda but within the jurisdiction of this commission. Is there anyone wishing to be heard under that item? Seeing no one, then that is the end of our business for today. And do we need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, and happy holidays.
Adjourn.
Yeah. Moved and seconded, and hearing no dissent, we are adjourned with, everyone, happy holidays.
You? Is it one of your listeners?